Coming up in just a little bit, we're going to be talking about a crazy trade where Miami rejoins Bam Adebayo and Anthony Davis. The duo was awesome for the Olympic USA squad a couple of off seasons ago, and maybe Miami would like to bring him in to the 305. And it's clear that Miami needs another big. I mean, the Heat have gotten off to a really good start. They're 7-5 through their first 12 games and have had a really tough schedule to begin the year. So that's pretty good with Adebayo missing games as well as Tyler Hero being out for the entire year to this point. But the Heat have been able to win games at an unsustainable level. Why do I say that? It's because they are consistently being out-rebounded. The Heat are 7-5. They played 12 games. The Heat have been out-rebounded in 9 of the 12 games. They actually out-rebounded their first two opponents, the Magic and Grizzlies, and then since then, well, they've been out-rebounded every game besides one. Specifically over the last 5 games, it has been really ugly. Out-rebounded by 23 to Denver, 20 to the Hornets, 10 by Portland, and in back-to-back games by 4 and 5 respectively to the Cleveland Cavaliers. I mentioned the word unsustainable, but that is the perfect word to use here when referring to the Heat's style of play right now. Miami is not going to be able to win for an entire 82-game season, as well as in a 7-game playoff series, if you are consistently allowing your opponent the amount of second chance opportunities that Miami has. Not only are they being out-rebounded for the game, the offensive rebounds Miami has allowed, simply unbelievable. 14.8 offensive rebounds per game. That is the second most in the NBA. The team that allows the most offensive rebounds per game, the Washington Wizards at 14.9, and it's a different on the year of 2 offensive rebounds. And it killed Miami again last night, giving up about 16, 17 offensive rebounds to the Cleveland Cavaliers. And against the Blazers last Saturday, they gave up 20. Like, Miami's not going to be able to win. And I don't know if it's the need for more size. I think it's more or less on that line because when Bam Adebayo's been hurting out, and I know that's going to be a big story here, and deservedly so because he's your best rebounder and best person that is able to box out and secure rebounds. But when Ware isn't on the floor, you're running a small lineup with Jovic. And I know Jovic shouldn't be playing small ball center, but the point is the Heat roster is constructed to a point where they don't have another big man outside of Kel'el Ware right now with Bam Adebayo's injury. So you need to add more size, not only to help Bam, help Kel'el Ware, but also provide an insurance, if you will, when or if those two players, one of them goes down with injury. And we're going to talk about Anthony Davis here coming up, so stick around. Anthony Davis very well may be the solution for the Miami Heat in terms of this rebounding issue. And with the Mavericks firing their GM or president of basketball operations, I don't know his exact title, earlier this week, and Nico Harrison, it seems likely that they could trade one of their top veterans this upcoming trade deadline because that team is going to have to go into a full rebuild mode because Nico Harrison put them so far in the gutter. And before we look at the trade rumors, and help us out here by sharing today's video, our November share leaderboard. We're 3rd right now at the company behind Knicks and Warriors. So let's take them over. Share today's video to a Heat fan if you want to help us out and reclaim that top spot. But the top trade candidates, in my opinion, on the Dallas Mavericks following the Nico Harrison firing are Anthony Davis, Kyrie Irving, Klay Thompson, and Daniel Gafford. I don't think they would ever trade Derek Lively. They're obviously not going to trade Cooper Flagg. And PJ Washington is ineligible to be traded right now as well. So obviously you think about the veterans first, as they might have to go into a kind of a rebuild mode and try to build around Cooper Flagg. And Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving make a lot of sense to potentially trade since they won't be competing for a title within the next 3 to 4 years like Nico Harrison intended for them to be. And obviously Anthony Davis is the headliner and has been in the topic of conversation the most because he was the player acquired from the Los Angeles Lakers in the Luka Doncic trade. And ESPN's Tim MacMahon said it's uncertain what the trade market for Davis would be due to his durability issues, although he's still a dominant force on both ends of the floor when healthy. Several league sources were adamant that gauging the market over the upcoming months is due diligence that Dallas must undertake. And maybe shopped is a strong word to use here, but I do think Anthony Davis's name will be floated on the trade market a ton. The new GM or president or whoever's running the ship for the Dallas Mavericks is going to want to make a splash move, if you will, to try to earn that job long term. We always see that with interim GMs. They usually never continue to hold that position past that season where they were the interim unless they make some moves that are looked at consensus wise as elite great decisions. And I think trading Anthony Davis and getting some picks back is very much on the table. And the interim GM would be able to then go to the owner, Patrick Dumont, and said, well, look what I did here. I was given some shit situations, and I was able to get us some picks and prioritize the future. And Anthony Davis, as much as he is a polarizing figure in the NBA, is still extremely dominant when on the court. And I know it's a big if and like a when he's on the court, but he's a consistent 20, 10, and 2 blocks a night guy while shooting 50% from the field. Now, his three-point shooting has declined, and you wonder if Bam and AD would be able to work together in the NBA, but with Bam's improved three-point shooting before the injury, maybe they could. But there is serious concerns when trading for Anthony Davis. There's no sugarcoating that, right? His contract, he's being paid max money, so $54+ million each of the next 3 seasons. And his obviously durability issues where he misses about 25 games a season, and you don't ever know if he's going to be active and healthy for the playoffs either. But him and Bam duo in the front court would be nasty. It would be the best defensive front court duo, I think, in NBA history. We saw that be the case in, what was it, London, Coop? Yeah, London in the Olympics. And it would solve your rebounding issues because you would add AD and Bam. And I'll tell you what, who's going to get offensive rebound when you're putting AD and Bam down low? And it would certainly work defensively because the versatility those two guys display on that end. Bam could guard 1 through 5. AD could guard 3 through 5. I mean, it would be truly tremendous to watch those guys work on the glass as well as defensively. And I think you would be able to solve the offensive issues. But then there's the question as well, in this new Heat system that has the number 1 pace in the NBA and is prioritized on speed and floor spacing, would Anthony Davis even fit in this Heat kind of system? I have serious reservations about that as well. But we know the defense would work for sure, and the rebounding would be awesome. But let me know, what say you? Would you trade for Anthony Davis? Type T for trade or type P for pass. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section down below. Wanted to share the contract for Anthony Davis. I mentioned he's getting paid $54+ million over the next 3 years. You obviously see his contract for this season, but then he's got a 1+1 after this year, $58.4 million guaranteed next year, but then a $62.7 million player option. And if I'll be honest, I do think AD will opt into that contract rather than opt out and seek a larger extension, because at this point in his career and with all the durability issues, I just don't see a team paying him $60+ million on a multi-year contract. So I do think he would be in your building for 2 seasons after the rest of this year. So here's my trade idea for Anthony Davis, because I don't think Anthony Davis's trade value is that high due to his contract, age, and durability concerns. I think trading Andrew Wiggins, Terry Rozier, and a 2029 first-round pick, which is top 5 protected. Miami likely won't be picking in the top 5, so it's basically going to Dallas there, is very fair for Anthony Davis. And I know some Mavs fans here might say that's not enough for AD. I don't know if any Heat fans are going to say that's too much for Anthony Davis. I certainly don't believe so, because if I am trading for AD, and for all the reasons that I have outlined, his age, his durability concerns, the ability to fit in this Heat system and contract, I am not trading any of my young assets. I am not trading Tyler Hero. I am not trading Khalil Ware. And I am not trading more than 1 first-round pick. I think an expiring salary in Rozier, which I think the Mavericks would covet a lot, and we'll actually talk more about that in a little bit on the show, so stick around. A first-round pick, and Andrew Wiggins, a very solid player that has another year on his deal that would be expiring next year for $30 million, or the Dallas Mavericks could flip it in the offseason or at the next deadline for a pick and cap relief as well. Like, I think the Mavericks will really prioritize salary cap relief for the future and draft capital if they ultimately trade Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis. I just think that's what the new GM would like to do if he wants to save his job. So getting $26 million in expiring in Rozier, a first-round pick in 2029, which would give the Mavericks multiple first-round picks that year, by the way, and Wiggins, who's a very average to above-average player, but also not the worst contract in the world. Yeah, that's something I think the Mavericks would seriously consider. Would the Heat get outbid? Maybe, but that would certainly be my offer for Anthony Davis. More coming up here in a second, but this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. The weather is changing. It's getting colder, but the feeling of being right on PrizePicks never gets old. So get rolling with the basketball season when you can get $50 instantly when you play your first $5. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get your picks right, you could cash in. Which players are going off? Which players are overhyped? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your takes into cash this season. I'm going to the football world for Thursday night football. More than Breece Hall touchdowns, more than Drake May completions, and more than TreVeyon Henderson yards on his first carry. No Ramondre Stevenson today. I think TreVeyon Henderson has a big game and a big first run. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5. Links in the description and comments of today's video. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. Now, as I've kind of went through the Anthony Davis trade discussion, what the offer would be, the contract, should Miami do it, the concerns, the positives, I'm ultimately passing on that trade. We know as Heat fans, this Heat team, as currently constructed, very unlikely to win the NBA Finals, but could be very competitive in the Eastern Conference. And we're looking for the next superstar to join the Heat on the trade market or through the draft to ultimately elevate our ceiling to NBA title contenders. Although I do think Anthony Davis, when he's on the court, alongside a starting lineup that would potentially look like Bam, AD, Hero, Powell, and then like a Simone Fontecchio or a Jaquez or a Jovic, is among the best in the Eastern Conference, and I think would probably be the second best team in the East alongside the Knicks when fully healthy. I think it'd be better than the Pistons and better than the Cavs. I just don't think you are going to win a title because there is just too much limitations to that team offensively and health-wise. So I'm passing on the Davis trade. Too big of a swing. I want to hold on to my draft picks and future assets. So I'm not trading for Anthony Davis. But there is one real target on the Mavericks that I am very much in on going for. And the veteran that I want the Heat to trade for the most on the Mavs, if Dallas was having a fire sale at the deadline, would be big man Daniel Gafford. The former Washington Wizard was traded to the Dallas Mavericks a couple of years ago and helped spring that Mavericks team in 23-24 to the NBA Finals. I mean, he was a large reason why they had such a good postseason run. And I think he would be a perfect addition for the Miami Heat. He is an uber-efficient scorer on the rim. Now, he really isn't going to do anything for you other than finish and pick and rolls or putbacks on offensive rebounds, but he is very active on the glass, and he is a imposing physical presence. 6'10", 235, uber athletic. He can jump out of the building. I think he would be a great addition to this Heat roster as that third big. I mean, a front court rotation of Bam, Ware, and Daniel Gafford would be sensational. You could play Bam and Gafford together. You could play Ware and Gafford together because Ware's ability to shoot threes at times. You could play one of them and rest the other two. I think Gafford is the ideal big man that is not expensive. He's only making about $14.5 million a season. He's still got 3 years under contract after this year. So to me, this is not only an addition that's relatively cheap contractually this year, but also for the next 3 years. It's not that bad of a contract either. So this is a player that I'm intrigued with. Excuse me. Make sure you do subscribe to the channel, though, because we are going to continue to bring you Heat content every day. Live on Friday night for Heat Knicks, and we'll have videos out in between every game, so join the channel today. So what would a Gafford trade look like? It actually is a little bit of a tricky contract because Miami doesn't really have a player making that, excuse me, 8 to 10, 8 to $14 million range. Gafford making 14.5. So I think this is an idea that works out for both sides. Coop, who's a Mavs fan, not really sold on the idea, but I'll explain why I think the Mavs could be intrigued here. But Gafford and Klay combined to make about $31 million. 14.4 for Gafford and 16.6 for Klay Thompson. Rozier makes 26.6. Larson on that rookie second-round contract is at about $1.9 million. So the Heat would have to eat about $2.4 million in this deal. But I think it's fine because you're getting the two better players here, and you attach a second-round pick in 2027. But why is this a deal I think Miami would be in on making, as well as the Mavs potentially being interested? I think the Mavs would seriously covet that Terry Rozier contract. And for the people saying, well, you can't trade Rozier, he's put on leave from the NBA, well, I'll challenge the NBA and that scumbag Adam Silver on this one. Because here's the thing, Adam. If you're not going to void the contract of Terry Rozier, give Miami the cap relief for the shenanigans that he had when he was not even playing for Miami and he was playing for the Charlotte Hornets, and then you okayed the Rozier trade to Miami knowing that he is under investigation, the Heat should absolutely be allowed to trade that contract. And the Mavericks, knowing the issue, should very well welcome Rozier into their locker room. Why? Well, you would never be in their locker room, one. And if the trade happens and then the NBA voids it, well, the Mavericks get $26 million immediately in cap relief. And if they don't ever void it, well, they're getting $26 million coming off of their books this upcoming offseason. Klay Thompson's got one more year left on his deal. It's one of the worst contracts in the NBA. It's not super long, but Klay Thompson has been so bad this year, borderline unplayable, to where who wants to pay him $17 million next season? Certainly not the Dallas Mavericks, so you would get relief from that. You would get a really good young player in Klay Larson who is good defensively and a really good connecting piece. It would hurt to part ways with them, but I would be willing to do that to add a third big in Daniel Gafford, and you would also have some playoff shooting experience off your bench in Klay Thompson as well. And you only have to get rid of a second-round pick. I would be willing to make that trade. It would hurt to get rid of Larson, but I would do it to get Daniel Gafford. And I think the Mavs would be interested in taking on Rozier's salary, knowing that they'd have more flexibility to build around Cooper Flagg going forward. As a Heat fan, though, which trade do you prefer? Do you prefer the Anthony Davis deal where the Heat send a first-round pick in 2029, Andrew Wiggins and Terry Rozier for Anthony Davis, type AD? Or do you prefer that Daniel Gafford trade, type DG, where you give up Rozier, Larson in a second for Klay Thompson and Daniel Gafford? Let me know your thoughts down below. Obviously, I kind of already said mine. I would much rather do the Daniel Gafford trade because I don't want to give up any first-round picks in the future. I'm trying to hold on to all my first-round picks so I can trade multiple in the future. Remember, the Heat will actually have 3 available first-round picks to trade this offseason if they don't make any other first-round pick trades this deadline, because once they get past 2026, you would be able to trade 29, 31, and 33 for a star. So you'd have 3 tradable first-round picks. You could also do a couple swaps as well in 2030 and 2032. So, yeah, I'm trying to hold on to my first-round picks for the future, and I don't think you need to give one up for Daniel Gafford, despite Coop telling me you would. Andrew Wiggins couldn't fetch a first-round pick this last offseason. Newsflash, Andrew Wiggins is better than Daniel Gafford. So I don't think a first-round pick would be necessary for Mr. Gafford. That'll do it for today's show. I mentioned we'll be live tomorrow on the channel for Heat Knicks Friday night. NBA Cup basketball, by the way, in New York on the road. Hopefully Miami can get a bounce-back win. We'll be live on the channel. So subscribe and join us then.